This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Maybe you're listening to today's podcast while getting ready for your day.
However you're tuning in, today's guest has incredible stories about an American dynasty in the cosmetics industry, full of history and intrigue.
She's Sharrie Williams, the great niece of the founder of the household name Maybelline. Sharrie, welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you so much.
And I wanted to ask you, okay, when people hear Maybelline, they think of a global brand. But you started, for you, it kind of started as a family story. So what's the very first memory you have that made you realize that your family wasn't exactly like everyone else's?
Oh my gosh, that is a good question because it is true. I think when I was really little, I remember going to the neighbor kids' houses and wondering why they were so sparse. You know what I mean? There was no glitz or glamour, or we had gotten all of my great uncle's furniture from the Villa Valentino after the freeway had taken it for eminent domain. And so naturally, our house was filled with, in fact, I still have the furniture in my living room. That's how much I grew up with it. Then it was at my dad's. He died. I got it. But it was all the statue and of aspiration and everything. So that was the first thing to make me wonder. And then the other thing was when the family would come over to our little house in Culver City after the war, World War II, when my dad came home and all that, there would be like Cadillacs and Packards, you know what I'm... And I just began to wonder why we seem kind of different. And then my great uncle would come over when Maybelline was first starting to be on television. And when a Maybelline ad came on, everybody would run out into the, to the little TVs we had, and everything was just so exciting. And I just knew that there was something going on. And there was always my grandmother always had to have a cocktail. My dad always had Frank Sinatra playing. You know, it was sort of like we were living in a movie and everybody else was just having this normal life. And that is how I began. And then it just escalated. Like I was a little older, I was in the market with my little friend and her mother. And there was a Maybelline going, those twirly things. And I said, my uncle, I invented Maybelline. And the mother goes, oh, no, dear. You mean your uncle works for the company. And so I went home and I told my mom and dad, and no, Uncle I'll, the whole thing. Plus, we would get makeup all the time in the mail. So there was just like a lot of stuff that was going on, and it continued to escalate as I got older. But that's sort of like the beginning.
Wow.
I mean, folks have used makeup. I mean, the ancient Egyptians,
Right.
used makeup of some form.
Right.
But your great uncle, I mean, like Maybelline is just, it's like Xerox and Coke, you know what I mean? In our lives. But so was it a rags to riches story for him? I mean,
Oh, yes.
and
Very much
so
so.
what I'm trying to ask is, how in heaven's name did your great uncle invent makeup?
Well, he used to say to me, I didn't invent makeup. It's been around since Cleopatra. So let's get that straight. He goes, I want to be remembered as, excuse me, the king of advertising.
Ah.
So when he was a young boy, about 12 years old, he'd gotten a little motorbike of some sort. And he kept it for a while, and then he painted it himself, and he put a little 1.5-inch ad into Popular Mechanics, and he got like 50 requests for the bike. And with that little 1.5-inch ad and selling the bike, he said, this is what I want to do. I want to make my life advertising. So at first it would start off in classified magazines, then it went into dime stores, and, then TV and everything. But in the very beginning, how he started it was He knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He knew he wanted to be in advertising, but he'd grown up in a little tiny town in Kentucky, Morganfield, Kentucky. There wasn't a lot of options for men back then. You could be a minister, you could be a farmer. There was just limited, but he had big
or a
ideas.
bootlegger.
He didn't fit in town, and so he says, if I could only just think of a product, if I could only think of something that people would want to reorder. So first he came out with gag gifts, and that really did pretty well for a while. He actually made some good money. But how often are people going to repeat buying gag gifts? So then he worked in Nickelodeon, and for the first time he saw the eyes of the movie stars in the silent films. That was the ticket. And then one night he was in his sister's room, and she was putting some Vaseline on her eyelashes and her eyebrows. And he goes, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Well, I accidentally singed my eyebrows, and I'm putting Vaseline on it now to try to make it grow." And he goes, "Is there anything else like that on the market?" "Not that I know of." So he goes to his friend who had a chemistry set. They come up with the first lash brow in. They do really well on that. I mean, they really put it in, again, a 1.5 inch in Popular Mechanics. The money started flowing in. But then all of a sudden, he was hit with a lawsuit because the name Lash Brow In was taken from another product. It was called Lash Lean or something, Lash Brow or something. Anyway, so he got rid of that name and he named it Maybelline after his sister Mabel, who gave him the idea. And she started it with that little bit. He puts it together with the silent film stars. He goes, I've never seen eyes like that, Mabel, because she'd put a little coal dust in it to give it color. And boom, he took off. And then World War I happened, the jazz age, the movie industry. He was in the right place at the right time to explode in women's liberation, getting the vote. There was just no turning back for him. He had ignited something on fire, women.
Wow. And then what happened? Okay, so I have to say, and I want to hear your opinion, there was a movie that just came out on Netflix, no, whatever it was, I can't remember. And it's called Maybelline Prince. And they did say, I think they said that it was based on your book, Sharrie. Is that true? No, it isn't.
Based on his book.
Oh, whose book? Oh, the fellow, the friend. Uncle. Okay, yeah, explain that, Sharrie, just for our listeners and viewers.
Which part?
About the film.
Oh, the film. The worst film in the history of films, number one. It is the most low budget, embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life. And most of it is made up. That is absolutely for sure. I don't know if you know about the podcast that I was involved in. And it was 6 episodes. Mm-hmm. And it's called, let's see, Miss Maybelline, the Pied Piper, and Hobby the Clown. And it's on everything. It's all over the place. And that is a podcast about who Danny really was and how he played into my grandmother's life. On Lido Isle in Newport Beach, when we first moved down there in 1968 or 9, he had a salon right there on the island. And so my grandmother, Nana, would go there, get her facials. She wore wigs, so he did her wigs and all that. And I liked him too. We all loved him. He was really cool. So anyway, somehow he introduces her to this Hobby the Clown guy, who is a complete gigolo, takes her out of Newport Beach, puts her in Hot Springs, Arkansas. She went through a terrible divorce, lost so much money to him because she was stupid enough to put his name on all her accounts, if you can believe that, and took us out of the will.
Wow.
She was really mad at us because we'd gone on and had lives. I got married. My dad divorced my mother. He was, you know what I mean? It's like we weren't giving Nana the attention she needed. And she was like 74, and this guy was giving her attention. Before you know it, sells her house on Lido Isle, takes off to Hot Springs, Arkansas, divorces the guy, calls Danny from Lido Isle, "Can you please come and help me?" He does. He moves in with her. They kind of become business partners. They open up a grand theater. I think it was called the Palace Theater. Everybody was there the night of the opening. I mean, even Clinton was invited. All of the mayors and everything. It was a big deal. Miss Maybelline, she was promoting herself as. Well, the next day, that night, she was mistress of ceremonies. Conway Twitty opened up the palace. The next day, she is killed. Her house burned down, and $3 million in bonds were stolen, bearer bonds. All of that is in my podcast. Any story that was told in Maybelline Prince is so not true. Danny was trying to make it look like it was her ex-husband, and and that check that he showed for $2 million for that. I don't believe it. I believe that was my grandmother's money. Anyway, I probably, shouldn't be talking about this stuff, but I do have the podcast. It's out there. It's legitimate. And I can talk about that.
For sure.
I just wanted to say that as with many families that have a lot of dough, for example, yours sounds like it also had a lot of drama to the extent where you could probably be on an episode of Dateline or something like that with your grandmother. But all of these goings on must have affected you in some way. And how have you managed to come out of all that?
Well, it did affect me in a way because I don't think there was a me. I was Nana's little clone, number one. She completely turned me into the person that I was, which at the time I thought was great because it was always into fashion, makeup, clothes, parties, cars, dancing. I mean, it wasn't so bad. It was the 1970s. So they'll give you a clue. It was boogie nights, the whole excitement of everything. So much excitement, so much money was coming through. Because my great uncle only made family members got the stock. Okay, it was not put out there in the stock exchange. It was all just the members of the immediate family because they were the ones who helped him, worked for the company and did all that till he sold it. So naturally, overnight, I mean, all the cousins were millionaires. All the families were millionaires, multimillionaires, overnight, did not even know it was coming, didn't even see it coming. It was in the mail, a check. And even though we had seen him for Christmas that year, he did not even tell us. It was a surprise. I had gone to him and said, when I got out of high school, I want to be a Maybelline model. I want to work for the company. I want to be a model. And he says, well, Sharrie, you've got everything going for you. Okay, it's not that. It's just if I did that for you, all the other cousins would be jealous if I favored you that way. Little did I know, this was 1965, that he was selling the company. You know what I mean? It's like the company sold in 67. So he was already seeing bids from all the different companies that were interested in buying Maybelline, but I took it personally. But anyway, all of this, I did everything they wanted me to do. I married the lawyer, got the house with the view, had the perfect kid, had the perfect life. And all of a sudden, I lost a baby. And I fell to my knees and I just said, God, what is wrong? I have everything that everybody says will make you happy. Why am I so miserable? Well, from that point on, I actually got into a 12-step program. That was the beginning of me realizing that something was really different when other people spoke and when I spoke about my life compared to other people's lives. And people began to say, you need to write a book. I mean, that was not normal. The way that you grew up was always, we never could talk about the company or anything. But we had to always be very careful not to say anything that would embarrass the family or Tom Lyle or Maybelline, the brand. So I think we all did 2 separate lives, the life within the family being perfect, and then the life outside of the family, smoking pot or whatever, in the 70s, it was like trying to be a real person. But after losing the baby and then my husband left me, I began to think something's wrong. And then I got into therapy. Then I went back to school to get my degree in psychology. And I began to come out who the real person, the little child I had neglected to be what the family needed me to be. And I just changed so much. I got my degree. I wrote a book. It was really wonderful. I really liked myself. I didn't have to always walk in a room and make sure everybody kind of like was impressed.
Yeah. And what was your book? How did your book help you, Sharrie?
Oh, it was so cathartic, you could imagine. It took me years because I was really afraid. My dad didn't really want me to come out with it. None of his generation, which were the children of the founder and his, our family. But he says, look, I have a really good life. And if people will think that I have way more money than I do, and I would start to have bodyguards like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was governor at the time. That's why he said that. Mm-hmm. But even the other cousins of his generation didn't want me to reveal that Tom Lyle was gay. That seemed to be, back then, a real problem. They wanted to keep the brand, him, the family, this pristine. In other words, you did not know who we were. There was the name Maybelline and all the actresses and the superstars that represented Maybelline. But as far as the family's concerned, no one needs to know. Mm-hmm. But I did come out with a book after my father died, after everybody died. In my generation, they don't care. They love it.
Wow. So that was another example of how wealth actually doesn't really address what's really going on inside the family. You had to hide who you all were and hide the fact that the Maybelline was kind of in the closet, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Not really, so to speak, but it was in the closet. You mentioned something earlier that really piqued my interest, and that is you talked about women's liberation in the 70s or what have you. Mm-hmm. But that was really true. I mean, Maybelline, what it represented was that a woman, I'm a guy speaking, so I apologize, but it sort of allowed a woman to express herself in whatever way she wanted to in that era, which was the era of smoking pot and burning your bra and doing all of those things. I mean, were you ever surprised at just how much of an effect a product like makeup cosmetics could have on a society such as ours?
Well, I thought about it while I was writing the book. It didn't dawn on me when I was young and in the 70s and all, because I was part of it. You know what I mean? I had to have perspective by getting away from it and then looking at it and really realizing how Tom Lyle, he started the ball rolling in the 1920s, actually 1915. It started. But when those film stars and the silent films came out, and then the war, and then women got the vote, and the jazz age happened, and then the skirts went up, and girls were driving in cars with boys, everything had changed. And I do believe Maybelline had something to do with that, because women were going to the movies, they were seeing those eyes, and they began to choose images as like, oh, I really would like to kind of like look like Joan Crawford, or I kind of would look like Mary Pickford back in the day, whatever it was. But Tom Lyle, in the early days of the company, could not let anybody see the product that was being mailed out, because men were threatening to divorce their wives. So they had to come, Maybelline had to be sent in a little brown paper and hidden, because it was the era in the 20s of vanity was a sin, and women and wives were to be the symbol of virtue. And what could be worse than putting prostitute walking around on the street like that? By the 1970s, I really saw how it continued and continued and continued. And I think that it could be, it's huge what it did for women coming into their own consciousness, like it did my own consciousness.
Yeah. It really did. And Sharrie, so did your uncle sell the business to L'Oreal? Was it L'Oreal?
Wasn't the first, no. The first was sold in Christmas of 67. He sold it to a called Plow. Plow was a pharmaceutical company who wanted to add another conglomerate or something to their portfolio. So they bought it, and then they merged with Shearing, and then it became Shearing Plow, which caused everything to continue because all the money still went into advertising. advertising has been a strong suit of Maybelline. It still is today. And so then after that, a private company bought it. And then in 1996, L'Oreal bought it.
Oh, wow. So did you want to be part of that? I mean, it's still, the fact that it still holds your family name is amazing.
I know. It's amazing. I'm not kidding you. I can't even believe it. And yet I love it. I'm so excited because
still the best mascara, by the way.
What?
It's still the best mascara.
Oh, of course it is. You know that it's the #1 eye makeup still in the world. When we sold the company, Maybelline had 75% of the market. But what happened was that was in the late 60s. And if you remember the Beatles, and it was called the English Invasion, everything started coming here with all the new fancy, cute little eye makeup and Yardley and all this stuff. And the girls my generation, you know, were kind of like drawn to that. The short skirts, the purple, the lime green, the blasting stars, all that kind of stuff. And that's when my uncle said, you know, I just don't want to compete anymore. I'm almost 80 years old. And none of the family lived in Chicago. And so we weren't raised. Tom Lyle didn't raise the second generation to come in like L'Oreal did, which was so smart, or Estee Lauder. No, they got the money. And that's when more of the story unfolds in my book, is what happened when all that money came. And particularly what happened to Nana. Why did that happen to her? She was just my grandmother. How did she wind up being killed? House started on fire and that money stolen.
Did they find out who it was? I don't want to spoil it for your book, but did
they?
Well,
I think you need to listen to the podcast because I cannot say, I don't want to be sued, but it's pretty obvious. You know, I don't want to.
Did you?
I know, but I'm not going to say.
Did you ever meet Mabel, or was Mabel gone?
Of course.
You did.
She was Auntie Mabel, very close with all of them, all the 5 families. The kids, Tom Lyle, my grandfather Preston, Annie Mabel, Annie E., and Uncle Noel. He was the one who gave Tom Lyle $500 to start the advertising for the company. And he ran the company until he died in 1950, I believe. But yeah, of course. I mean, I wish that we could have held on. But I was a California girl going to the beach. You know, I wanted to wear the makeup. I didn't want to work. Honestly, I didn't want to work. A young lawyer. And that didn't work out. And I had a child. And then after a while, I did want to work. But Maybelline was gone. But you could never take the story away from me.
No.
Would you describe this as achieving the American dream?
Of course. It's the ultimate entrepreneurial story.
Look what happened to your grandma as a result of it.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? It started with the burning of a cork with Annie Mabel, and she took the ash and she mixed it with the Vaseline. And then my house in 1993, the big Laguna Beach fire. I lost my house in a fire. Tom Lyle's house in Bel Air, he saved it by throwing everything in the swimming pool. But that Bel Air was on fire. And then my grandmother. The whole theme, it seems to be fire.
Boy.
Wow. Hey, and Sharrie, you spent decades protecting and telling the Maybelline story. What is one part of your family history that you that people still don't quite understand and you wish they would? Is there anything?
Most people, when I was younger, couldn't relate to me because they were just like fun friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I loved them all. It's not that, but sometimes having a lot of money overnight is like winning the lottery. And it can be really lonely, for one thing, when you're by yourself without your makeup on. And there were a lot of losses. You know, what happened to my mother. It would happen to my grandmother. And
what happened to your mother, Sharrie?
Oh, it's just such a sad story. I mean, my mother's family is actually MGM. So not only did I grow up with all the makeup, but I got all the costumes and the props and everything from the studio. We lived in Culver City, right down the street. My grandfather was a motion picture pioneer, special effects man. My mother's brother won the Academy Award for The Longest Day, and Ben-Hur. So that's why it was very dramatic. And you come to my house and people would start singing, playing the piano, dancing, so it was all like
Old
that.
Hollywood.
So,
That's old Hollywood.
yeah, we were show people.
Yeah.
And so people outside of my family, you know what I'm saying? It's like they couldn't relate to me. And
No.
if they found out about the big houses and stuff like that, it changed the relationships with people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I had to write the book and tell the story because it was sort of like I lived behind a glass mirror, kind of watching myself live life rather than really be a part of life. I lived in a bubble.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't judge me or anyone like me because I've gone through a lot of tragedies, with my mother, her mental illness. She had the fourth child, Preston, and she had a postmenopausal. But you see, back in 1960, when that happened to her, postpartum,
Yeah.
back in that time, doctors knew nothing about women. Okay, so my mother, they just said she needs shock treatment.
Right.
What? And then she had to be perfect to be in the family, so she drank nothing but hot water for, thought it was 40 days, but maybe it was 30 days. She lost all that weight. She took diet pills through the pregnancy. She completely had a nervous breakdown, had shock treatment, finally wound up in a mental hospital years later. And that was the worst loss ever for me.
Yeah.
Losing my marriage was a terrible loss for me. And having to overcome it. But like Tom Lyle, my great uncle, would always say is that, it's really easy to be up and happy and cheerful when everything is going right for you. But the test of real character is how you handle the downtimes.
Yeah.
And we were kind of raised like that. And so some way, like Nana would say, you've got to learn to rise to the occasion. And that's kind of how I live my life, good, bad, or indifferent. But, I am 78 and I still am pretty involved with the game, life, My book is out, tried to be made into a mini-series.
Yeah, how is that? How's that going?
Well, because of what's going on right now with Warner Brothers, do you know all that stuff?
I do, yes.
Oh, okay.
But please share it with our viewers and listeners.
Okay, well, Warner Brothers, which breaks my heart because the 5 studios, MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, there were only 5. If people didn't know that, there's only 5 major studios. If Warner Brothers and Paramount, or Warner Brothers and anyone who buys them, that's a studio, that's going to bring us down to 4. And for me, it just ruins the history. Okay. But right now, Warner Brothers is kind of up for auction, and Paramount seems to be the biggest bidder, even though there's Apple, you can just Google it. I'm not saying anything you can't read. But Warner Brothers is interested in my story, but nothing can be done right now.
Mm-hmm.
So my agent said she wants to start showing it to other people, but she's kind of leaning towards them. So I'm kind of, and the podcast also is under contract for a docudrama. And if that happens, then they would want to do both the series and the docudrama. So if all that were to happen, imagine me at this age, Uncle Isle, why couldn't I have come out when I was gorgeous and 20? Why do you have to wait, everybody, until I'm really old? But then I remember saying to my dad, Daddy, everybody loves you. And he goes, why? Because I'm old? He was 80. And I started laughing and go, yeah, I think that's part of it. Because you look so good, you're still so meticulous and gorgeous, even at 80, that people love role models. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why I've been chosen now. I would have been another pretty face at 45, okay? Almost 80, that gives me credibility. And I'm still fit and strong and all that. So,
And it's empowering, Sharrie.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I still have my voice. And I have a lot of life experience. Like Nana used to say, plenty of wrecks are hidden under a good paint job. He has so many good ones. And, you just have to rise to the occasion and show up and suit up and be a star, I guess. That's how I was always raised, to be a star. Here I am now at the end of my life. Anyway.
She was referring to putting on the makeup when she said putting new paint job on a wreck.
That's
or
what
what
she
have
did.
you.
Right.
So all of these things, like self-confidence comes from that, I would assume.
Yes.
The fact that you could be proud of the way you looked, the fact that you could change the way you looked. All of these things, as we were talking about earlier, are very liberating. What if I was to ask you about the flip side of that, though? Because women have always been under tremendous pressure to look the right way, act the right way, be somebody that's in a magazine, even though you don't look like somebody that's in a magazine.
Yes.
Does the cosmetic industry help with that too? And are they not sort of two polar opposites of what they're supposed to be?
Well, I mean, makeup definitely helps people with depression or whatever. I mean, it's definitely, I'm a totally different person without makeup on.
Yeah.
Like
the Extreme Makeover Show, all these kinds of things that happen on.
Like that.
But then that adds to the pressure of having to look like a
That's why I never hardly want to go out. I'm not kidding you. And my dad had said, you got to watch it, Sharrie, because in our family, when you get old, you become a hermit because you're so used to being out there and turning heads and walking into parties and stuff like that. But when you can't do it anymore, you just don't want to, it takes so much time to put yourself together in your costume.
Yeah. And do you have with your background in education, Sharrie, and I know we're coming to the end. How do you feel? So do you have that confidence to say to go out and be, comfortable in your own skin?
I think that I'm talking pretty openly with you. I couldn't have talked like this back then. You know what I mean? I had to have a sheet. I'm doing free reign. I'm talking about things that I hope I don't get in trouble for from my family or from Maybelline prints or whatever it is. But no, in the old days, I was such a clone of my grandmother.
Yeah.
And all her little euphemisms and the way that she would, her pinky ring up in the air. No, I actually was very much like her. Now I think I am more opinion. I have my own opinions, which is pretty amazing. And I don't wear fancy clothes anymore. I don't care about designer clothes anymore. And I think that I am pretty comfortable being Sharrie at this age. My life probably will bloom when I'm 80. I'll be like Grandma Moses.
So you are, so you're comfortable in your own skin with or without makeup, which is very good.
But not publicly. Oh, no. I'm not going out with no makeup on.
Okay.
No.
And what kind of makeup do you use, by the way?
Oh, yes, that's a good question.
I've got it on right now.
Wow. Oh,
there it is.
Yes.
Just
gorgeous.
It's my turn this week to ask you the signature question for our podcast, Believe in People. But I want to ask it a little bit differently because you've just told us the road that you've taken to end up the comfortable you that you are now.
Yeah.
Why?
And I'm a grandmother.
Congratulations.
It's fabulous.
Why do you believe in yourself?
Because I can overcome. Because whatever has been thrown at me by the grace of God, I have been able to overcome it. I don't care what I have to do it. If I have to get into a grief workshop or an Al-Anon program or the church or whatever it is, I will keep going until God takes me out. You know what I mean? But I really feel that I have been given something that is a mission. And I think it is to tell this story. And I just am not going to back down and give up. But the years keep going by. Once I'm gone, that's the end. None of the other cousins care. My daughter, of course, could carry on, but I lived it. I was at the tail end. You'd asked about my Annie Mabel. Very close to Annie Mabel. Very close to all of them. They're the ones who told me the stories for the book. They're the ones who gave me the pictures. They are the ones who told me secrets that I had no idea. No, see, I'm the last child to live having known all of those wonderful people, including my great uncle. I thought he was my grandfather. He was my father's godfather.
Father's godfather. Wow. Sharrie, you're so inspiring. We encourage people to read your book. We will include it in this in our series, in this episode, and I'm just really grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed meeting both of you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
What an interesting life story from a fellow in Kentucky who uses burnt cork on his sister to create some kind of eyelash thing or what have you, and it turns into a household name, ginormous wealth, and then all of the issues that come from inheriting that, and how this woman, essentially had to break away from it in many ways in order to maintain her sense of self. It's quite a journey.
It really is. And the fact that she's written about it and she has sort of kept that story alive, because she did say that, she's sort of the last of the legacy. And so it's inspiring.
Well, if you're looking forward to more interesting stories like this one, please join our podcast and listen in again next week. Thank you very much from Believe in People.
Thanks, everyone.